Hi, folks. Thank you for tuning into the Starving Artist podcast. This is our first episode, and we hope that you continue to listen forever. Seriously. I am your host, Rocky Cotard, the illustrator and fine artist. We also have our co-host, Xavier X, Professor X, our fearless leader and also designer extraordinaire. And we have Trina, the one who makes sure we are on task and approves of all that we do before we do it. We are extremely excited to share our stories with you and to create a platform for others to share theirs. This is our team, and today you will be hearing our stories. Welcome, and once again, thank you for tuning in to our Starving Artists podcast. Now we're going to go over to Katrina. So Katrina, where can they find us?
You can listen to this podcast on SoundCloud at Starving Artist. You can watch us on YouTube at Starving Artist Podcast. Or you can hit us up on IG at starving_artist.
Find us, folks.
So Rocky, what do you have in store for us today?
So as part of our first episode, we wanted to give you an opportunity to get to know us. And so we're going to do a kind of conversation and discussion amongst us, Professor X and I, the two artists in the space. So first, I would like to know some things about you, X. So where are you from? Where did you become, how did you become an artist? And, what's going on? Who are you? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, such a loaded question. I'm from here, from Boston, from Dorchester. You could probably hear it in my
Chester.
My car. Yeah, Chester. Yeah. I don't really have a strong accent, but I'm from here. And where did I get started? Well, like a lot of artists, I started when I was very young, doodling, drawing. I think my first character was when I was 8 years old. His name was the Red Falcon. He was like the superhero. And so I was always encouraged by my mom. She said, "Baby, you got some talent. Just keep it going." So that's what.
Keep it going, baby.
Keep it going. So that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping it going.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me too. I mean, I don't know if a family had, because I was always kind of the artist who, I don't know. I saw other people do it, and then I said, why not? DragonballZ looks pretty cool, and it's the show that I like to watch, so we're going to try. So for me, it was definitely that, seeing different representations in, media and things like that, and cartoons. I always found myself connected to that. And, in Haiti, there's a ton of amazing statues that are really cool. So I remember whenever I'd go to Port-au-Prince or something like that, they were always interesting to me. And then when I came to the U.S., I saw, I remember I was in elementary school. I saw a kid drawing super realistic drawings of Dragon Ball Z, and he had like 10 kids around him, fully supportive of all that he did. And I was like, I got to get in. Got to get in. So that was mine. So, all right. So next question. This is probably a more difficult question. I want to hear from you, Professor X, as well as you, Katrina. So what is the one ice cream flavor that you cannot live without?
Oh man, the favorite ice cream flavor I can't live without. Well, about a year ago, I got into gelatos.
I don't know if that counts.
Yeah. I mean, gelatos are delicious. They're so good. Once you have it, you will not go back. You won't get ice cream the same. But there's one that's called Caribbean Coconut. I thought it was called Caribbean Cream, but somebody corrected me.
Yep.
I wonder who that was.
It's Caribbean Coconut. So I have to, people. Caribbean Coconut.
Gotcha. I will have to try it. Those who are listening, you have 10 hours to try Caribbean Coconut, or else it will still be there. So, Katrina, where are you at?
For me, I'm chocolate chip cookie dough.
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
Oldie but
solid.
goodie.
Solid. Me, I think it's black raspberry.
Oh.
And if it's not black raspberry.
We're putting on that,
for sure, easily. So, X, how did you go from creating art to speaking about art in a podcast setting? What made that change?
Well, we were just touching on it a little bit with one word that I'm just going to give you is Corona.
Oh yeah, that's a good word. That's a good word. Yeah. Or a bad word.
Well, we're putting on this COVID weight, sitting in the houses. When I was sitting at home, I was thinking about what is a good way to keep us artists together, to keep us collaborating, to keep us positive, to generate some good positive energy, to be enthusiastic about continuing, to keep pushing through, because that's so much of being an artist. You fail, you get rejected, but you still get up.
Been there.
And so, I was like, what's a way to do that? And starting this community, starting this podcast with you and Katrina is the first stepping stone to doing that.
Woo. Woo woo! I support you. Yeah, for sure. I think for me too. It was. I think when you reached out to me about the podcast setting, I was definitely like, yeah, this is a pretty cool opportunity. For some reason, I was in the time or the headspace where I was like, how cool would it be to be on the news? Not for bad reasons. To be telling the news, not to be on the news. To be telling.
To be delivering the news,
Very
not to be
things.
on the news.
Yes, I do. No, I don't want to be on the news. I'm good. I'd like to. I wondered how would it be to go about the process of saying, the weather's gonna be nice today. We're looking at an overcast and a very easy, breezy. Make sure to wear your coats and raincoats and bring an umbrella outside. So, when you reached out, I thought this was definitely the perfect opportunity to tell some version of the news. My news.
Your mom to be mad at me because you're in the news for the wrong reason.
Oh yeah, no. Oh yeah, no news. I will not be on the news. So. What do you hope for people to gain by listening to this podcast? I would actually like to hear from both of you guys.
Okay. Let's I'll go first, and then if Katrina, if you want to add to it. What I hope for those who are listening, you always have what's called the target audience, and I don't really like that term.
Me neither.
I feel like I like the desired listener or the desired partner or collaborator. You want someone on the other end who's watching, who's listening, to feel connected in some way, to reach them, in an intrinsic way, a way that they feel like, oh yeah, this is reaching me, this is good. And I want it to be just more than just giving tips. I want it to really be a community where people learn, where people share, where people feel like they can be transparent, they can let it all out, so I really want to be deep.
Well, for me, I'm not an artist, so I don't have a lot of technical knowledge to share in this space, but I enjoy art and I enjoy watching the process. Xavier, for those who don't know, is my husband, so I've seen him create a lot of different things, and I just enjoy watching things from the beginning to end. And then Rocky, I've seen a lot of his work. I've been to his gallery shows, and he's an amazing artist as well. So to be able to do something with both you guys together is definitely a great privilege for me.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and for me, I just hope you guys listen forever.
Forever.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I do think we have a lot to offer in terms of our thinking processes, definitely our humor. But I think we will, this is definitely the first episode. So as you bear with us, you'll get a lot more information in what we plan to do. But I'm really excited for the connections that we're going to be creating and the different folks that we'll be connecting with as we go further into the process. I think you all will be too.
We're all going to have fun. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Let me ask you just one question.
Yep.
What is the funnest part of being an artist? And second part to that is, what is the challenging part to it?
Yeah, I tell you. Let's see. Art making. So there's I think there's a lot of different aspects to it, because sometimes there are times the parts where I think of as being the hardest parts are the parts where I'm kind of feeling more connected to. I will say though, lately one of the materials that I find that there's always a lot of fun and looseness to is watercolor. Why? Like I feel like I just can't do any wrong with it. It's like, oh, I made a mistake, but I'm just gonna put some paint here, put some water here, and then fix it. And it took like an hour to make, so there's not a huge commitment. So I think in that I find a really huge like fun and creative nature to it. I often do that to like some really nice chill music, and I'm like, this is actually therapeutic. Um, and then I think the most challenging part is sometimes getting into the headspace of the content, whether it's about history or things that have or trying to change some way of thinking within my work. I think sometimes getting into the headspace is a little challenging because that definitely brings along emotions and upsets that you don't necessarily want to live in. So those are the kind of spaces. But I think wherever you're at, there are spaces where I may be in, where I may enjoy the flip flop or the other way around. Yeah. What about you?
Well, for me, I like a lot what you was mentioning with the challenges. In the beginning, the process is very easy. You kind of come into it with full emotion, full motivation, momentum is up. And then that kind of plateaus as you start getting deeper in the project, and you're almost like going up this hill. And as you're going up this hill, when you get to the summit, you're happy to see the finish line. But finishing is just, it's tough. It's finishing is one of the toughest things. One of my favorite artists is a comic book artist, and he does these fine art pieces, and he doesn't finish them. And the studios are calling him, trying to see, what's going on. They push time back because his stuff is so great. And it's just, for me personally, finishing is the tough part because you see the way you want it to look, but to get it there, it's just like, oh man, the ambition, can be so heavy on your shoulder. You're just like, I don't know if I can do this. And then, you get, doubting and stuff like that. So it's definitely a lot of challenges, but we want to close out that segment and we want to move on to our next segment. And thank you, Rocky, for answering those questions, and you too, Katrina.
You too.
But after this commercial break, we're going to come back with Katrina, questions from the moderator. It's going to be a 1 minute rapid fire question. So we're going to answer, go back and forth, and we're going to listen to that from Katrina. So back to you after this break.
What's going on, gamers? Remember those vintage games? Well, now you have the memory of Mega Man. Take a look at the collection made by me, Xavier, with Imagine Action Studios.
All right, welcome back from that commercial break. We wanted to give you guys an opportunity to get to know these guys a little bit better. So we have a couple questions for them. We're going to put 1 minute on the clock, and they're going to respond to these questions for us. All right, here we go. First question. Did you pass your driving test on the first try?
No.
Yes, I did. Absolutely.
No.
Orange
Easy.
juice or apple juice?
Apple all the way.
Marvel
Good job,
or
X.
DC?
DC.
Marvel. Did you mean Marvel?
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Night
Ooh, both. Actually, it's tragic. It is a terrible thing. I go to sleep late. I wake up at 7.
Can you swim?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I am a
What's your
great
favorite
swimmer.
video game?
I am a seal.
You're a seal. What is
Yes.
your favorite video game?
Ooh. I don't really play video games that much. But Jack and Daxter, Sly Cooper, all those PS2 games that are like way back. That's me.
I'm going to say Super Smash Brothers.
Mm.
That's one of my classics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Roller skates or rollerblades?
Skates all the way. Come on.
Yeah, skates.
Skates on the 4s. That's when you got the style, Woo, woo, back.
All right, guys. That's our time.
It's over. Yeah, well, all right. Thank you very much for that, Katrina. Kind of taking us through the fun of everything. So, next we are going to get into a conversation between us where we have a conversation essentially about the COVID quarantine. The COVID quarantine. So, how are you keeping motivation throughout this time of pause? Really,
Well,
how, Professor X?
I,
How?
I don't know how. It's just every day is different. You know, you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go outside. Yeah, oh no, I gotta find my mask. I'm gonna do, and it's like there's this new normal. If I hear that term one more time, the new normal, the social distancing, it's driving me insane. But
Yeah.
to stay motivated, I try to do something with art related every day. And I don't always get to do that. And so, it is what it is. But I try to do that at least once a day. That helps me to get calm. That helps me with prayer. It's like everything is connected. And so I don't get too overwhelmed with what's going on, things that are out of my hands. And one last thing was I was looking at some old art, and I love art history. And there's a picture by Pablo Picasso called Guernica. And I seen this, I believe it was at MoMA in New York City. It's a museum. And his picture was basically a response to the World War that was going on at that time. So I was like, sometimes pandemics, sometimes wars, things happen, but it brings the best out of people. And the best was definitely that picture, Guernica, from Pablo Picasso. So I'm like, maybe I can get my own Guernica soon.
Let me get some Guernica. Almost sounds like a medicine a little bit. Guernica fixes your back. Sorry. Guernica. Sorry. But yeah, for me it's kind of the same. Definitely that piece on being influenced by other artists. I just really try to keep that interested. Like I've been very interested in animation as of recent because it's something I can't do. I can do it, but not right now.
I was gonna say
just to clarify.
I've seen pieces from you that was animated like that.
Yeah, I'm struggling with it, I would say. That eye piece, that was me trying to figure out what is the science of this? Can it work? Can I make it work? And then that was like a good experience. So I'm trying to do more with it to just kind of get a sense of what I want to do. But I think for me, the staying motivated piece is based around finding new things that, I'm not as skilled at, things that I can learn. And even the things that I know, finding new dimensions to those. And I think that has been certainly like a very, a motivating factor. And then also just looking at the work of other people and being excited by it. Gallery shows are not available, but Instagram, Pinterest, all those kind of apps, or even Google, Google, just looking up some random art is definitely like a way for me to feed like my artistic interest and continue to create. And I think another piece to it certainly is just following randomness. Do you want to just randomly do something you've never done, which is fine? Paint with coffee, paint with something different, or draw with something different. I think those are certainly like really interesting ways to just challenge yourself so that you keep growing.
Well, that's a good point you mentioned about getting to know new things, because I was on the verge of getting my production license when Corona came, and so, I was learning about production, I was learning about sound, I was learning about video, and I loved the class, and I was learning with some other folks in there, and we all loved it. And right when the final test was coming, we couldn't even take it because Corona. So it's really, I think Katrina and I, we had this discussion before. We talked about, two things. This coronavirus is going to show people's priorities,
Mm-hmm.
what's important in your life. That's going to start to rise. And the other thing is going to be what we're talking about now, like your motivation to do things. Like, what's going to get you up in the morning besides having to go to work to, survive, to make a paycheck? What's that motivation going to be? And I like this discussion. And maybe it can be an ongoing discussion throughout our podcast. What's the motivation?
What is it? Yeah, even
How do you keep it?
yeah. I think even just within my process, because I work on like 10 things at the same time. I don't know why I'm like this, but it makes it so that when I finish, like it's a huge payoff. But when I start, it's like, but I do think that, the more you make, the more you want to make. So I just find that like when I have 10 things to make and not just one, I'm always like, oh, wow, I got to do these. One of them is stressing me out, so I'll put it to the side a little bit. But I know that I'm still being creative and creating something, whether it's like making like randomly bathroom paintings so that the bathroom could feel a little more homey, or even living room spaces, just really defining those things. So just taking on random little ideas that you've had, because, yep, that's essentially most of it.
You create tissue castles in the bathroom,
No. Not yet. We'll get there.
Unless there's a market for it.
Yes. Somebody pays me, and then I'll definitely jump into that.
This has been a great show. This has been great, man.
So thank you guys for watching or listening, whichever one that you're tuning in from. So we do have a couple words of thank you from each one of us that we wanted to say, watching, listening, yep. So X, would you like to go first?
Want to say thank you all for taking this journey with us. You could have listened to any podcast or any video, but you're here with us. And I'm so happy.
Kidding.
And I'm so happy to do this inaugural podcast with you two as well. Anything you want to say, Katrina?
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. We definitely appreciate it. This is our first episode. We're super excited that we got it done. And don't forget to check us out on SoundCloud to listen at Starving Artist. You can watch us on YouTube at Starving Artist Podcast, or you can hit us up on IG at starving_artist_podcast.
So thank you so much for listening, and thank you guys for those words to our listeners. So this has been such a fun experience for all of us to kind of put this together for you guys. Hopefully you had fun time listening to us. We hope that you do follow us on Instagram and share with your friends. For today's episode, we wanted to introduce you to us and grant you an inside look into the passion behind the work that you will hear and later on kind of see and all those kind of things. We do hope that you do watch forever. But stay tuned for our next episode, where we will be bringing in a guest speaker, a photographer in the Boston area who has been extraordinary in her craft. Tune in to next time to hear what she has to say about the starving artist.